In this video, I'm going to show you how I got a nearly perfect Google Lighthouse score with a WordPress site. So what the heck is Google Lighthouse? Simply stated, Google Lighthouse is a tool for measuring the performance, accessibility, best practices, and SEO of your website. In other words, it audits your site. After the audit, Lighthouse shows a score from 0 to 100. The higher the score, the better your site is performing. If you test your own site with Lighthouse and get a bad score, try not to panic. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands of techniques you can use to improve your score. Thankfully, many of them are quick fixes. And while others may take a few days or weeks to untangle, they are still fixable. If you have a poor score and just want to feel better about your life, just run Lighthouse on any popular site or app. Here are daily mails results. Ooh, pretty bleak on that performance. Just above all, remember that a bad score isn't permanent. Google Lighthouse exists to help you improve your site, not banish you to a lifetime of unachievable metrics. Let me give you some background on my own site, RealToughCandy.com. This is a content site where we review software education courses, coding platforms, and tech books. If it involves learning about code, I want it on this site. I bought the domain a few years ago. However, it wasn't until March of 2020 where I really started getting serious with it. I had to get serious because in March, I hired my first full-time writer. At the beginning of 2020, I was doing a lot of research about site performance, about the pros and cons of WordPress, and of course about SEO. According to Google, speed is a ranking factor. In other words, when Google is determining the order of web pages that show up, Google considers how fast that page loads when making their decision. Page speed is but one of over 200 ranking factors according to Backlink.io, but it's a pretty big one. And the truth is, whether you're on the first page or the 20th page of search results, people aren't going to stick around if a page is slow. They're just going to go check out another site. At the end of the day, website performance matters because one, it's a ranking factor, and two, users like fast stuff. So again, it was at the start of 2020 when I recalibrated my mind to focus on a high quality, speedy user experience. Here are the main performance factors I focused on. Number one, VPS hosting. Call me basic, but I'm a big fan of shared hosting. It's cheap, it's easy to set up, and the maintenance is minimal. That said, there are some downsides to shared hosting, some pretty big ones. One of them is that it's slow. So my first order of business was upgrading to VPS, or virtual private server hosting. As the name suggests, I have my little virtual area on a server carved out for me. And with that VPS comes a lot of nice benefits. For example, I can log in as root, I can choose my OS, I can customize my firewall, and most importantly, my site runs faster on VPS compared to shared hosting. Performance factor number two, my WordPress theme. The first thing I did after my VPS upgrade was research WordPress themes. A lot of these themes are really gorgeous, but they're bloated and there are too many doodads and add-ons. So when I was researching these themes, I wanted to ensure two things. Number one, that they weren't sagging with code bloat. And number two, that they were relatively popular. Why is that? Because documentation. I needed a theme that had all the important questions answered already. I needed informational blog posts containing speed hacks and insights for power users of that theme. For example, instead of spending months experimenting with what works and what doesn't with my chosen theme, I'd be able to just go online and find recommendations for optimizing it. In the end, I probably spent a week or so picking out a reliable theme, but the time investment was totally worth it. In my opinion, a fast WordPress site starts with a good theme. Performance factor number three, WordPress plugin management. I was really greedy with plugins at first. Why have one caching plugin when I can have two? I mean, you never know when the first one might break, right? You mean I can have a little blue bird in the middle of an article telling people to tweet my Sign me up! Oh yeah, I got real greedy, but greed on websites will always affect performance negatively. So I self-imposed a very strict policy on plugins. I only run a few now, and when I need a feature, I'll either roll my own or do without. I even got rid of my classic WordPress contact form plugin because I realized I really don't want people contacting me through this site anyway. And do people really need a social share button beneath one of my Codecademy Pro hot takes? Yeah, probably not. So I run a very light WordPress plugin footprint now. So you want to know the secret to getting a passing Google Lighthouse score? Here it is. Users first. If you take a user first approach to your site, much of your scoring is going to fall into place. For example, users want fast things. And by having a page that loads fast, you're going to get love from your users, but you're also going to get a good performance rating on Lighthouse. I optimized RealToughCandy.com for my users with a focus on speed and engaging content. And then I started getting serious with auditing on Lighthouse. For example, I didn't see my score on first contentful paint and go fix it, then go to speed index and go fix it, then go to time to interactive and fix it. You can certainly take that checklist approach, but I didn't. Instead, even before I knew Google Lighthouse existed, I was calibrating my site to accommodate my users, just focusing on creating a good quality experience that was fast. So we're taking custom photos, we're going inside these courses, we're getting some good screenshots, we're writing up really detailed and thorough descriptions, we write nicely formatted paragraphs with good descriptive headers, we're giving users what they want. But we're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes too. For example, we're compressing photos, we're deferring scripts, we're adding custom PHP functions, we're optimizing our server, we are maintaining that server and website 7 days a week, and a lot more. And all these things add up in terms of user experience. As a side effect of that, you get some really good scores in Lighthouse. Before using Lighthouse, I relied mostly on Google Analytics and Google Search Console to see how we were performing in terms of traffic. Neither of these services audits your site, but you can get a detailed look at who's visiting your site, how they're visiting it, and what they're interested in. And that can really help steer your user experience efforts. For example, on Google Analytics, you can see the breakdown of devices used on your site. Now, if 90% of your audience is on mobile, you want to make sure most of your efforts are delivering a killer mobile experience. If you own a web app or a website, I recommend integrating your web property with Google Analytics and Google Search Console. Combined with Lighthouse, it paints a really vivid picture of your domain's ecosystem. You may think the story ends here, happily ever after. Yeah, no, I fell for the temptation of ads and absolutely killed my site's performance. Let me explain how that happened. A few weeks after I hired my first writer back in March of 2020, I decided to put ads on RealToughCandy.com. And while the money was decent for the traffic I was getting, the user experience was abysmal. To illustrate, I ran the auto ads option, which means Google and later on Zoic decides where to place the ads on my blog posts. The more ads they place, the more money everyone makes. As you can imagine, neither Google nor Ezoic nor myself wants to lose out on ad revenue. So there were ads everywhere. My site was literally littered with ads, and as a result, my Google Lighthouse performance ranking tanked. My performance here is at an unimpressive 55. If I want to have a competitive edge, this is not an acceptable score. This score wasn't necessarily due to the fact that I was running ads, but because of the third-party scripts that had to be loaded to run the ads. And so that just killed my site's performance. Anyway, I tried so much stuff to compensate. I tried upgrading on Cloudflare. I got the deluxe version of a WordPress performance plugin. I was even considering upgrading to a dedicated server. A few tweaks gave me a couple points in the performance category on Lighthouse, but the third-party scripts are third-party scripts. They're invasive little turds that resist most taming efforts. Not to mention, my Core Web Vitals assessment had also tanked once I started running Ezoic ads on mobile in November 2020. And even worse, Core Web Vitals are going to be an additional ranking factor starting in 2021. But it's a tough decision because on one hand, I'm making money every month on these ads, but on the other hand, Google is going to no doubt punish me one way or the other for having a poor user experience. And I mean, honestly, ads do run in the opposite direction of the experience I want to give my users. So finally, after months of internal debate, I decided in December of 2020 to remove all ads. 4 points away from performance perfection, 100 on accessibility, 100 on best practices, 100 on SEO, on a WordPress site, no less. Here's a result from an individual blog page. Still looking pretty good. We are in the green for all 4 of these. I do have a little bit of work to do yet, but when I compare these numbers to my competition, I'm doing pretty good. And again, these scores aren't permanent. I have plenty of time to incorporate some more score boosting techniques. If you want to get a great Google Lighthouse score in WordPress, I cannot stress enough how important it is to give your users a great experience. No matter what the website or web app is, if you cater to your users, so many things just fall into place. Now, let me share a few technical tips for getting a good Google Lighthouse score with WordPress. One of the biggest and best things you can start doing on the beginner level is compressing your images. A lot of people aren't doing that, and it's killing their site's performance score. Second, be mindful of your plugins. Third, watch out for where those plugin scripts are running. Many times they don't need to be running at all. Fourth, if you're not using a plugin, you should deactivate it or even delete it if you know you won't be using it anymore. And finally, I would suggest having a very light ad footprint. On the other hand, you can do like I did and totally eliminate ads. This is a really big decision that will likely immediately impact your income. I deliberated for months before making this decision, but in the end, I know a good user experience is going to boost every metric out there. It's going to boost my SEO. It's going to boost my site's accessibility. It's going to boost my core web vitals. I hope you enjoyed this journey to the center of Lighthouse with a WordPress site. If you did, please hit the thumbs up button. Please tell a friend about the channel. Subscribe to this channel too. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next video.